I'm Klaus. We're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, the security power tool you didn't know you needed. As everyone with black pets knows that they're impossible to take a photo of, and when you manage to take a photo of them, you can't really show them in their mightiness. So it's me with my cats. It's not me that has a weird shaped face or anything. Um, I'm Klaus. I'm age 48, and I live in Copenhagen along with my wife and our two cats. I've been in Infosec since 2004, and during that time, I've gained experience with many areas of security. And I used to work as a security architect at a few companies before my career took a turn. I've been involved in community like forever. I've been I was involved. I've been involved in our local OS chapter since 2008, and I co-founded BSAS Copenhagen in 2019. And then, very much inspired by Jason Blanchard from Black Hills, I went into marketing as head of community at a company doing open source security, and then that was really cool. But then I wasn't there anymore, and um then I started out as a freelancer, and I've been doing that since 2000. Oh, sorry, since 2022. And also, I went freelance in order to do fun stuff, and one of the fun stuff I try to do is playing games with people and get paid for it. That's really cool. So I'm here to convince you to sort of do the same. There's no need to take any photos or slides or anything, and because the last slide will be a QR code where you can download all the slides. All right. So first, we'll be talking about which problem we're trying to solve. Um, I'll talk a little bit about how your brain works, how it likes game, and how it likes learning with others. Then I'll be talking about role-playing games, specifically why they are immersive and diverse and fun, of course. And then I'll talk about HackBack, which is a role-playing game framework, you could say. It started out as incident response, but you can really use it for a lot of things, and it's open source. Well, we're trying to make it open source, but I'll talk more about that later. Um, all right. Well, we're talking about game-based learning a lot, so it's important for you to know what it is. Game-based learning is playing games to learn, meaning the actual game is what you learn from. It's not the same as gamifications, where you turn something into a game to motivate people. Like the people finish security awareness training first, they get cake. I mean, that's gamification, but not much learning in that. Um, when we'll be doing training, it's typically class or computer-based training, and in incident response training, it's different. We use tabletop exercises here a lot, and the problem with the two first, computer class-based or computer-based training, is that it's a very intellectual and very theoretical way of training, and that might not fit all people or all learning objectives very well. So in incident response, we use tabletop exercise to try and teach handling the exercise in a more practical way, because after all, we're not really interested in finding out how people know they should handle the incident. We're interested in find out how they actually will handle the incident when something is up. So in theory, it's great. The problem is that in practice, it's often very, very dull to do. But let me explain. As I said before, it's about building muscle memory, and the chance of handling an incident is much better when everybody knows what they should do. So you want to train. Um, so if you want to train your team in handling incidents, a very cost-effective way to do it by this. So using tabletops or TTX. So the problem with that is, as I said before, they are boring, really. You can do it in a lot of ways, but when I talk about them, I'll be talking about them in a specific way, and the way you may be doing them may be different. So, um, but this is my experience after 20 years in cybersecurity. So, people, the problem with people is that they don't really open up. When they're in a game and their boss is there, they tend to think about, what will happen if I say this and this, and how will that affect my relationship with my boss and my work or whatever. And then there's the whole ego thing that people's ego clashes, um, and um, and also it doesn't really. represent reality when people are not honest. And some people, there was always that person in the corner just fight the scenarios and says, and they sit with their arms crossed and say, well, that can't happen, and that's not possible, or whatever. The people that fight scenarios. But to me, the really most important thing, or the most important problem with it is that they're oftentimes really, really dull. Because typically you sit around the table and you talk about procedures, and it's immensely boring. You don't want that. So and obviously when things are boring. People need to be forced to in order to do it, and that's not engagement, right? So if there's not so to me, if there's no engagement, there's no learning, and if there's no learning, there's no purpose. So the problem is, of course, is there another way? Yes, of course. So to me, it has always made great sense to play games and have fun, to learn, and sort of combine those two things. But it turns out that me having a feeling about things is not really convincing. So instead, I've turned to the world of science in order to build some authority. So I hope that works. And so I found some papers, and I'll be quoting some of them. And as I said, you can download the slides, and you get links to the entire papers. Most studies in the sample reported analog DBL as an effective pedagogical tool with an impact on the learning, cognitive, and psychological levels. That's from an article from the Media Frontiers in Psychology, Playing at the School Table, which is an assessment of a review of different games, analog games, of course. So really, in general, science says that this is a good thing. So that's good so far. So in reality, it's fun playing games, and fun is serious business, and that's another thing that you may be that your management might find is weird, that you can actually have fun and do something serious in the same time. To me, that's not paradoxes, but to some it is. Another study I found said that your brain is really wired for learning with others. The quote is, "I think we're all impressed by how stupid humans are. It reaches almost epic proportions. We're stupid in dozens and dozens of ways, but human minds are plug-and-play devices. They're not meant to be used alone. They're meant to be used in networks. Games allow us to do that. They allow us to use collective intelligence. Collectively, we're not so stupid." So that's an article summing up a panel debate at Stanford. So basically, when we're together, when we're sitting in what they call a network, when people are sitting together in small groups, this is where you learn. Where you're talking about what to do and how to do things, this is really when you learn. So obviously, there's many ways to do this in practice. We've chosen to implement a team-based learning, playing together as a team. And we're going to do it as a role-playing game because of a real life experience with both Internet Response and Dungeons and Dragons. So when Dungeons and Dragons and its cousins are played in an inviting, encouraging, compassionate, and intellectually engaged environment, play opens the door to truly amazing possibilities for learning. So this is there's a paper I found specifically on Dungeons and Dragons. A professor at Rochester Institute of Technology. So basically, not only do we think it's fun, which is of course just an excuse to play Dungeons and Dragons on a grown-up job, it's also actually something that science says is cool. So obviously I'm showing you a way to be able to play Dungeons and Dragons in your grown-up life, and that's, I mean, who wouldn't love that? So yeah, this is your possibility to do the same. So yeah, we're geeks. We'll take any excuse to do Dungeons and Dragons as part of a grown-up jobs, and you'll probably do the same. But that being said, there's a reason why Dungeons and Dragons has been so successful, because that is exactly what we're taking advantage of when we're using games in a more serious context. Because when doing inter-response role-playing games, people players, they act differently than they would in a traditional TTX because they laugh a lot more. And when people laugh, they have fun. And when they have fun, they engage, they immerse themselves. They forget their egos. They forget all this protecting your own turf, ego shit. They forget fighting the scenario and, the whole honesty thing. But that's not all real because in a role-playing game, players can play other roles than they usually have or than they would have in an incident that gives them empathy for other roles. The example I always use for this is that if you're a very technical person, then you tend to think that the only thing that really matters in an incident is the whole technical part of it. But if you take a person like that and put them into the role as the head of communication, they will certainly get this epiphany then that that there is something other than all the technical stuff. This whole stakeholder management thing that's actually really, really important. And when people they understand each other's roles better, then the teamwork will be better. So to me that's a unique thing that role playing games can do. And also another thing that a role playing game can do compared to the whole sitting around the corner and talking about procedures is that when we're playing HackBack, for instance, every player has 2 actions. That means that when those 2 actions are done, they can't do anymore. So that means that you will have to use all participants equally. You can't have one person do everything, just as you can't do that as you can in a real life situation. So obviously, first of all, they won't have bandwidth to do everything, and again, what if that person got run over by a bus? Well, yeah, what? So you can't have too much dependency on one person. Not in any kind of reality or situation, and most definitely not this. So HackBack is a general framework for simulating any situation, and also it's open source soon-ish, meaning that we want to open sources. We have it in a private GitHub repo, which we'll talk about later, and you can join our Discord and get access, and then help us develop it or whatever. And you might ask, why do we want to give this away for free? But that is a very valid question. But the thing is that last year while with Tagging Fest, I had a chat with Jason from Black Hills, Jason Benters, who is one of the main people behind Backdoors and Breaches, and he said a very interesting thing that the more you give away to people, to companies, the more they want to hire you to do it. Because the thing is that we can open source and release all scenarios, all characters, all rules, whatever, but it will still require skills for the person running the game, and the training to do that. So yeah, I mean you can't just take everything and then run a game and then it will be fine. You would need, first of all, the expertise to understand the all aspects of the incident, but you also need to think on your feet, because the way Dungeons and Dragons and also HackBack work is that it's very open-ended. Everything can literally happen, and you need to be able to think on your feet, and that requires training. So yeah, this is our not so fancy logo, but at least it's there. That's a URL to a website, and also the URL to our LinkedIn company page, and I promise you, it's a real QR code. No, it's not a weird try for me to fish you or anything. Of course it isn't. Anyways, now let's talk about what HackBack actually is. The way I see it, as I said before, I've talked about HackBack as a tool for incident response because that's where everything started, but it's definitely not where it's going to be end. It's definitely not where it's going to end. Because to me, HackBack is a general framework that you can use to put players through like any situations. So and that is where the title of my talk come in. I see this as the universal power tool that you didn't really know you needed, but now you do, and well, you're welcome, right? Obviously, HackBack can simulate any situation because, yeah, I said before. And here's a few examples. Yes, so de-abstractify is a weird word, but it really means that HackBack is good to make abstract content more concrete. For instance, what is zero trust? I mean, nobody knows what zero trust is, but if you play it in a game, play a scenario around it, then you will sort of understand, what it is, rather than whatever you heard some salesperson talk about, because they sure as hell don't know either, right? And also, what happens if you neglect IAM? You don't have proper user management. Well, yeah, then you're in trouble. You can also use it to teach non-techies, for instance, sales and marketing, how it feels to be in the middle of an incident, or how hacker thinks, because obviously they're not qualified to handle incidents or think as a hacker. But with HackBack and other games, you can do it more or less abstract. You don't have to be very technical in explaining what you want to do. And to me, this is really ingenious, because obviously the better marketing and sales understand, the better they are at that job, right? And this is a really, because I think the problem or the challenge with most sales and marketing people is they typically don't have a technical background, so they don't really understand, right? And with Hackback or any other kind of role playing game, they will understand. They will get the gist of how it is to be how it is to be a hacker, or whatever you want to play in your scenario. And to me, that's really ingenious. Yeah, you can use it to teach teamwork. Um, you can imagine a game where you work together in a team of five, and your objective is to physically penetrate a building. So obviously, each character can have two physical objects, and also each character are good at different things. So it looks like, or it sounds like, it's a game about hacking a building, but in reality, it's a game about teamwork. Because if you can't work together as a team, you will not succeed. Because it's a matter of using each person's different skills in order to succeed. Um, and also, you can use it for marketing events. You can write custom scenarios with your customers' products, or your company's products and your services, so customers can really understand how they work in real life. You can use it for team events. Um, Instead of individuals playing a role, a team can play that role. I've played Hackback with up to 25 people. So either a team is playing that role, or people are discussing in teams how which character should do what in a given situation, which is really really interesting. Because, as I said in the beginning, with this whole network thing, the discussion, those small discussions where you learn things, you can do that. That doesn't really work when you're more people. But if you divide people into groups, they will still have that discussion. And to me, that's one of the most valuable parts of a game session like this. You can also use it to simulate real events. For instance, the last year in Denmark, there was an attack on Danish infrastructure, which was handled by the CERT team. If you create a scenario around that incident, you could sort of make people understand, how was that attack, how did it work, and as I said, it really works differently when people are trying it themselves. So yeah, I think the most ingenious part about Hackback and all the possibilities, because as I see them, they are literally endless. It's really just a matter of getting the right idea. So Hackback Incident Response edition. This is the most mature version, because this is where everything started. So the incident master is the person running the game. They're the ultimate authority, the storyteller. They also adjust the difficulty to the players and their luck, so that they make it through key elements of the game, or of their learning objectives. Yes. Yes. Each player, the team is a very they have very broad skills. Typically, it's a CMO, it's a CFO, it's a security manager, IT supporter, Microsoft system architect, or similar. And the fun thing about the roles is that we try and make them stereotypical. For my favorite example is always the Microsoft system architect, because he's this Windows zealot, and everything needs to be Windows, Windows, Windows. And Linux is a failed experiment, and the only reason why the Lumia phone failed is because it was ahead of its time, right? So he's that person. Also, he has -1 likability because everybody really thinks he's a jerk. So I'm sure I won't name any names, but I'm sure you've come across people like this, right? So we try to do that, and the fun thing in the beginning of the game, people are presenting themselves as the character, and when they are presenting themselves as some kind of stereotypical jerk or stereotypical person, they just crack up and they laugh, and this is really where the magic begins, right? People try to immerse into their roles, and they forget, all the things they shouldn't say, and thinking and trying to, and starting to think it's fine. This is really, really where the magic happens. So when you want to do an action, you roll a dice, and depending on how difficult it is, you need to roll over 5, 10, or 15, and then whatever properties your character has, your various skills, is added or taken away from that. And also scenarios are typically very open-ended. So like in a real incident, you don't get a lot of it. You don't get a lot of information to begin with. You need to investigate, just like in real life. And yeah, as I said before, getting into character, this is where the magic happens. We've tried a couple of things in order to make the characters relatable. When I first got in touch with HackBack, the characters were all very I hate to say this, they were very stereotypical American, and that might work very well in America. But guess what? I'm not in America, so right? Does that work? Probably not. So instead, I tried to experiment to make them pre-made. That the character sheet does a lot of explaining how is this character and all the properties, but in reality, you're playing with your own name or somebody else's name or whatever. Or you can also do it totally from scratch. Like Dungeons & Dragons, you're rolling your dice to create your character. You can do that, but it really doesn't make a lot of sense like it does in Dungeons & Dragons, because you typically won't be nurturing the character for years and years and years in campaigns and campaigns. You will typically only play each scenario or play this game like a fixed number of times, and probably not as the same character. So that really doesn't make sense. But there's a lot of opportunities, and I'm not sure I find the best way to do it yet. But of course, if somebody plays it and get some experience, I'd love to hear how it goes. This is the example of the start of a scenario. So the backstory of this is that the entire IT infrastructure of the company is in Azure, and is sorry for you guys in America. 1650 means 4:50 p.m. And it's on a Friday afternoon, and because Friday afternoon, that's where most of our games take place. Because Friday afternoon, this is where incidents are, right? So you get an alert from Microsoft Dart, and that in itself is not so crazy. The alert says that there's an administrator that happens to be from marketing logged in. And the really weird thing is that this person is on vacation. And this is all the information we have. So what do you do? Right. Well, there are a number of ways to go about this, but obviously you need to know is something really going on. So you could try and make your IT supporter call that person, because the IT supporter has a +2 likability. He's the person that they're the person that everyone loves. So obviously the reason the possibility of the person at the other end picking up the phone when they call is much bigger. So you can do that, or you can try and look at logs, so it's find out what did they do, where did they log in from? Did they log in from China? Oh well, that's maybe not so good, right? So yeah. And then sort of then the story sort of goes on from there. That of course you need to find out what's going on and then act upon that, just like in real life. And oh, sorry, yeah, and I've mentioned a couple of ways to use HackBack, but of course there's more. And so here's some of the ideas that I had. You can use micro attack simulations. For instance, you can put HackBack on top of a purple team assignment, so that you are not only doing the technical assignment, you're also doing a crisis management simulation, which is the HackBack part of it. And the most crazy idea I got lately is is that is to do a risk assessment game where you're risk assessing the Death Star, obviously, and somebody gets to play Darth Vader, and everybody's dressed up. It's about risk management, which to geeks is one of the most boring things in life. But shrink wrapping it as a Star Wars, everybody will love it. Or you can also play a game where two teams are playing the same scenario. One is attacking, one is defending. As I've said many times, your imagination really sets the limit here because there's a lot of possibilities. And yeah, as I said earlier, we are open sourcing it, meaning it's in our GitHub repo. Everything is in Corridor Markdown. And if you join our Discord, we'll be happy to give you access. Because right now it's not really that it's a secret or anything, but we want to put it in a proper state before we release it to everyone. We want it. We have really good plans on what we want to do, but we really didn't make all those characters. We didn't make all the scenarios. We haven't written down all the rules yet. There is an instant master handbook, but it needs some more work. And also various handouts for the scenarios. We also wanted that. So yeah, but of course it will happen eventually, I'm sure. But yeah, join us and we'll see what happens. And also if you do compliance, first of all, I want to say lucky you. But compliance means you have to do IR training. So here's a chance to play Dungeons and Dragons as part of your job. And if you do IR training like this, you both have fun. You'll also make users love compliance. Well, sort of, right? But it's a good idea. At least I think so. And I think the most important thing is to have fun and learn, of course. Yes, and that's the QR code to download slides, and please get in touch.